Hello everybody, my name is Manues and welcome to another Eternal Top Decks video series. I've been away for almost a week, but now I'm back, so it's time for another video series. Today with Chalice Control, one of the recently rising top decks, and one of the top control decks in the game right now. So I figured it's time to talk about it and talk about the list that I came up with at the moment. I worked on the deck a bit with VSarius once again too. We discussed a couple things, and yeah, this is the list that I'm currently at. Haven't talked to him about the deck in a while, but we agreed on like most of the major things regarding the deck. So basically what this is it's your typical very reactive, grindy control deck. Almost all of the cards in the deck are meant to help you generate some form of resource advantage, defense, and keep you alive. There's hardly anything that is purely there to just end the game. Alright, so let's talk about the units first. The deck runs 4 Desert Marshal, 4 Temple Scribe, 4 Amber Acolyte, 4 Combrei Healer, 3 Scorpion Wasp, 3 Marisen's Disciple, and 3 Lumen Defender. Desert Marshal, just a staple if you are in Justice and Time. It's a great removal / problem solver, and also a decent early defender. Trades with a lot of early attackers to buy us some time and silences some of the more powerful utility units. Temple Scribe is just great. It gains us health, can trade with some of the small units or just jump block to gain us some additional health virtually, while replacing itself by drawing a card when we play it. Also, like all units in the deck, synergizes really well with Crystalline, Chalice, but we'll get to that later. The only downside is that the double time on turn 2 puts quite some restraint on the power base, but I think we managed to solve that reasonably well at this point. I'll go into that further when we discuss the power base. Then we have for Amber Acolyte an essential part to making a deck work that requires time, justice, and quadruple Primal, and also so happens to be a decent blocker to also trade with small units and also synergize with Crystalline Chalice. Then we have Combrei Healer, our go-to early defender, a 2/5 that gains us 3 health, usually locks down the board pretty well for the first couple turns and makes it really hard for the opponent to get damage through, and later we can turn it into a 4/7 thanks to Chalice and draw a card. Then we have Scorpion Wasp, which is arguably more of a removal than a unit, but the fact that it's both is really nice in a deck that runs Chalice, because if you don't need to remove anything, it's not dead, unlike a Vanquish which would just sit in our hand. You can just play it at the end of turn, for example, and then Chalice it next turn to draw a card and turn into a 3/3 flying attacker to slowly start pressuring the opponent, for example. And other than that, it's just like a really nice versatile removal that deals with a lot of attacking units of all sizes and is sort of hard to stop, because even if they have like a fast spell removal for it, you usually still prevent the damage from the unit for 1 turn, so it at least sort of virtually gains us health, and it sidesteps Aegis and stuff, so it's just all in all a really good card in the deck. Yeah, and then we have Marisen's Disciple, which basically provides additional deadly blockers, and if that is not needed, it usually makes a 2/2 flyer, so that gives us 2 2/2 bodies to Chalice on, lets us draw 2 cards and generate 2 4/4s long term, which is a lot of value. And then we have Lumen Defender, just a great card, 1/5 deadly, holds the ground against most units, really annoying to attack into if the opponent doesn't have a removal or silence for it. That usually means no more attacks for the foreseeable future, and gaining 5 health is also really good in a control deck, and Chalice can turn it into a 3/7, making it survive basically every commonly played unit in the game when blocking. Alright, so then this in the other removal of the deck are 3 Vanquish, 4 Marshal, and if you want to count them, Channel the Tempest, because they can still be removal. You often use them to just kill a unit depending on the matchup and draw 3 cards. And in other matchups like control matchups, you tend to rather use them to kill the opponent at some point, channel their face, draw some cards, channel their face again to hopefully kill them, and if that's not enough, throw a third channel at their face. The other card draw engines in the deck, aside from Channel the Tempest, are for Wisdom of the Elders, the Temple Scribes in a way, and for Crystalline Chalice, which is like the main engine of the deck and what the deck wants to find the most, and cards like Wisdom and Temple Scribe help find it. Even Channel the Tempest in the late game helps finding it if you haven't found it yet, because that is the card that usually runs away with the game in a way, generating so much advantage that most people can't keep up with it. Yeah, then we have 2 Backlash, basically just as a catch-all, preventing us from getting burned out, stopping opposing Channel the Tempest, and so on and so forth. It just has proven very helpful and versatile. This slot used to be Permafrost, but the card's pretty underwhelming, and the deck didn't need the additional removal as much. Especially in the more problematic matchups is where the Permafrosts were bad, like against Rakano. And Backlash also helps against Burn, for example. It doesn't do much against Rakano either. But since Permafrost is not good against Rakano, we might as well upgrade it into something that's better across the board in other matchups, like Backlash. Alright, that covers all the non-power cards, and now we need to talk about the power base. So the deck basically wants 4 Primal by the time it has 8 power. It wants 2 time by the time it has 2 power as often as possible. Then it optimally also wants double Primal between turn 3 and turn 5. You don't play Wisdom of the Elders or have to play Wisdom of the Elders on turn 3 that often, because we have Combrei Healer and Acolyte on turn 3, for example. Same with Chalice on 4, but for example on 5, if you don't have to Marshal, you potentially want to go Wisdom plus activate Chalice or play a 2 power card, for example. So that's why the deck usually wants double Primal between turn 3 and turn 5-ish, and quadruple on turn 8. And yeah, so the power base is built accordingly. Basically almost all of the duels are time duels, to make it so that we can reliably get the Temple Scribes out early, and as many of them are also primal for the Channel the Tempest, which is also why there's 4 Primal Sigil, to make sure our Acolytes and Seeks have enough Primal to fetch, to make sure we hit our 4 blue sources by turn 8, and then we have the minimum of 2 green sources for Marshal for our Sigil drawers, and some additional time to get to the critical amount for turn 2 Temple Scribe. So the way the power base is right now, it flows pretty well, and all the requirements are met as well as possible with such heavy requirements. So I would recommend not meddling with this power base. We have worked a lot on this and thought through it and went through various iterations and scenarios and how to optimize it, and this is a really good balance. We did a lot of math on it to counterbalance all the numbers and probabilities, and now managed to set everything up in a way that usually if you have 8 power and have a channel, you will also usually have 4 primal, because we calculated the probability of having 8 power by turn 8 and the probability to have 4 primal by turn 8 and so on, to make sure that these are in order, because there's no point if we have a higher chance of having 4 primal by turn 8 than having actual 8 power by turn 8, because we only need 4 primal by turn 8 if we have 8 power. Otherwise, it doesn't matter if we have 7 power and 4 primal, who cares? And so on and so forth. So yeah, the power base works really well. The amount of power is pretty good. 29 plus 4 Acolyte has felt pretty good. It's like the minimum though that I would run. I wouldn't run any less. I guess I couldn't fault people that would feel uncomfortable with this amount to play more, but so far the 29 plus 4 Acolyte has worked pretty well with like the Temple Scribe cantrips and Wisdom of the Elders and stuff. One note is I currently cut Great Parliament simply because the card doesn't do a whole lot other than try to win the game, so it doesn't synergize really well with the rest of the deck. And so far this has been working well, since in slower matchups you can just sand back your Channel the Tempests when you have a lot of hand cards, and you can just use Channel the Tempest to kill the opponent, like multiple Channel the Tempest, because you have all the time in the world. And against other matchups you don't really need a win condition, especially against more aggressive and mid-range decks, because they will just be overwhelmed by the card advantage and you eventually just win with a bunch of like medium-sized dudes and channel back up. So you don't need like a dedicated win condition for these matchups. You mostly need to make sure that you win through other grindy decks. And the 4 channels seem to be enough, but I guess I could see if someone like has the feeling that the 4 channel are not sufficient to maybe cut the 3rd disciple for like 1 parliament or something. I'm not a big fan of a lot of parliaments, but maybe some people find that it's necessary to have like 1 parliament as like an additional win condition, so that you can in the late game make a bunch of owls and then win the turn after or something, because the channel don't quite get there alone. But I'm not sure. Like right now I really like not having the parliaments, because I don't want too many situational 8 drops, and like Parliament is not impressive as a 4 drop in this deck. Disciple is so much better with Chalice, and also like generally defending, because it generates 2 bodies and it generates a deadly unit that trades with whatever best attacker they have, like non-evasive attacker, non-quick draw attacker. So yeah, that's why there is no Great Parliaments, and we actually tried without channel first, but the deck lacked some like draw power in the late game and potential to just like pull far enough ahead to not lose anymore, and channel does that. Also channel makes up for when you don't find a Chalice early enough. So yeah, we went, and then at some point we had like both, and now we just decided to go for like maximum channel and no parliament to maximize draw and individual card power, rather than parliament, which just puts a bunch of bodies in play, but does not do as much and is as flexible as channel. Since, like I said, channel can be a removal, channel is card draw, channel is a win condition, channel is a great many things as well. Parliament is just a win condition basically. Alright, that's it for the decklist. This is the 75 I would recommend running. There's not a single card that I could see changing, other from like the 1 parliament idea at this point. Deck feels pretty well balanced and runs pretty smoothly, and if you build a good sideboard, it's also a really nice tournament deck. Alright, that's it with the decklist. As usual, I'm gonna jump into a couple of games with the deck to show it in action, so stay tuned for the first half of the games coming up. Thanks for watching.